Okay, here we go. Now she's here. Oh my goodness.
There you go.
Well, that was exciting. Emily! What a weird introduction we had, wasn't it? Thank you so much for your patience. I very much appreciate that. I wish there was a way to put you up on top. Okay.
I think it has to be initiated. Like, I would have had to initiate the conversation. But look.
Okay. Okay. So we don't need to be perfect to deliver some amazing jiu-jitsu messages to these ladies, right? And you are amazing. You're amazing. The first time I saw you was actually on some YouTube videos, and I was searching for ways to teach myself a little bit more at home, and came across. I was looking for more guard pass ideas, and I came across some really awesome pressure pass drills that you had, and I used them in some of my classes, and it was awesome. I loved it. So ever since then, I've been a huge fan of your teaching style, your technical skill, and your just way to make jiu-jitsu technique so relatable, as well as your messages. So just in listening to your podcast and reading your blogs, you have a beautiful way of just presenting jiu-jitsu in such a positive, it's your personal journey, and I really love it. And so in this group with women, I did a poll as to asking them, what do you want to learn most of next? And it was unanimously plateauing in jiu-jitsu. And this is something that they want more information on how to handle that struggle. And, as it comes, everybody in some form will experience this throughout their journey. Jiu-jitsu, it's not seasonal. This is lifelong. It could, potentially go on for, unless you take a voluntary break. There's no innate breaks within jiu-jitsu, unless now, other than now. So, so I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to just how you sort of came to the point you're at now, just a little brief introduction on your journey. I know you are a world champ and a mom and a wife. You have 2 kids and recently gave birth to another, so congratulations. And so I was wondering if you would just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started training maybe about 20 years ago, and unlike maybe how people are starting today, I started jiu-jitsu at a time when people really didn't know what it was. So I've said on, a few different podcasts, I think people from my generation, particularly females or smaller people, like there's something slightly not right in the head because the conditions for us to train were not great. They were actually really bad. When I think back on it, if we kept up with the way that we were learning, we probably wouldn't have a sport at all today. So something about it struck me, and I just kept going with it, and I never let it go. I wonder sometimes if it has something to do with my educational background. I was educated in the fine arts, and I think of it maybe like I just changed mediums. I went from painting and drawing to making performance art.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is a creative outlet for me. I now own a school in Princeton, New Jersey with a partner. I also run a series of camps with Hennet Stack and various jiu-jitsu guests. And I've started freelance writing a little bit because I think, in jiu-jitsu, there's so much focus placed on competition and learning technique, but there's so much more to the art. Like when we think about why we're so drawn to it and why we continue to practice, I don't think it's just the physical release that we get from it. So I'm trying to sort of, broaden the way that we think we can learn about jiu-jitsu and how it applies to our life. So that's me in short.
I love it. I love your perspective. It comes through in your writing so beautifully. So thank you for that. And so with our subject today, the struggle of plateau, you had a great blog on that. You wrote just seamlessly about that. I identified with it, and you had some great advice. And so I guess we could start with any plateau of your own, a story of, when you've come across this in your journey.
Yeah, so I think that, I'll speak to it very specifically, and I'll speak to it a little bit more broadly. I think most of us who are in this group and who've been training have probably had stagnant points come up in our lives at, one way or another, whether it was an educational thing or a job or jujitsu. There are going to be moments where our progress falls short of where we want it to be. And, the long game, the practice of jujitsu has really taught me that it's not going anywhere. When you're deeply passionate about something and you bring that practice or that way of life into your way of being, it's going to fluctuate and change in its form sometimes, but it's never really going to go away. And for me, I have had that have sort of been induced just saying and getting too close to what I know. And I've also had it on the other end where take a forced break, whether it be injury or pregnancy, and it's hard for me to get back in. Either way, plateauing is something that I think makes us question whether or not we're doing this for the right reasons. And we're sure that, anything that's worth doing in life doesn't come easy. Like we always have to work at the things that are now as everyone's still dealing with the coronavirus lockdowns. A lot of white belts and blue belts who are newer in the sport that just want to go back and train immediately. And training is a way of life for me, but because it's been a part of my life for 20 years, I'm also not in a huge rush to get back to what I was doing necessarily before, because I know that it's always there for me. But that type of and for people who are kind of, feeling that, oh, I'm not able to train, my game's going to plateau, I'm not going to be able to. We are deep in that space. What ends up happening is we are too close to what we want to be next to, and we don't start to look the same. We can't really measure what our feedback is telling us because it's tunnel vision. And sometimes in order to break out of that, and sometimes in order to find growth, we actually have to take a step away and gain a different dimension, gain a different perspective, look at it with a different set of lenses, if you will, because trying to hit the nail harder isn't going to help, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I find this a lot, even relative to what's going on in the country right now. Whether, I don't want to make the conversation too political, but whichever way you're leaning this way or that, we actually don't gain a lot by going deeper into our own confirmation biases and like diving into the side that we want to see. Where I think we can learn more is if we take a step away and we try to look at it from a different side. Maybe we don't like the way that we have to look at it from a different side, but when we put ourselves there, or if we at least open ourselves up to the idea of it, we might actually gain better insight into why what we're doing or why what we're thinking is not working. And I think that a lot of people have to work on this filter, learning to just step away and change the rhythm and change the pace of what they're doing.
I love that. I love that perspective. I think that's a very healthy, important perspective for people to get a handle on. We start in this journey, we dive into this sport that we love, and it becomes us. It becomes who we are. And I think this has given people a tremendous opportunity, if they let it, if you can see it from that perspective, to step back and know that this isn't your identity. This is something that can help you grow as a person. And, we potentially could just be so much better people and trainers and players at the end of this, coming out of this, if you take on a perspective like you're mentioning. I love that.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu is really one thing that I believe quite deeply for myself, and I think the reason why so many people continue to practice it is because when we start training, a lot of people will often say there's some sort of intangible release or some sort of like ethereal connection that they've never fought before in their life, so they don't really understand why they love it so much. And really what I think it is that jiu-jitsu gives us the opportunity to practice what we're not good at in life. It's a physical medium that allows us to practice all these intangible aspects to our life. Do we need to work on patience? Do we need to work on letting go? Do we need to work on being more assertive? These are all qualities that make us better people, but it's very hard to tell somebody, listen, Michelle, you gotta learn to be more patient. I mean, that goes through one ear and generally right out the other. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, you can say to somebody, look, I want you to really work on your timing and your patience. You're going for things too quickly. And if you filter that, if you slow down a little bit, you may find that you're more successful. And through training that physical piece, it translates into other aspects of our life. And I think that really is why so many people want to keep training the jiu-jitsu, is because it helps them understand themselves on a much deeper level. So that pain or that stagnation or that frustration that you feel when you're going through a plateau, you have to ask yourself, well, why am I feeling this way? What is it within myself that I am being too stubborn about, or what is it that I could do a little bit differently so that I'm not constantly hitting this wall?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And this is something that really can speak to people that have injuries. When you're so identifying with what you're doing and what your sport is, and especially with jiu-jitsu, obviously this happens, and we get taken out for an injury, or having a baby, and then trying to train back to that level that we once were. And you're a different person after an injury. Your body is different after having a baby, or if you have had surgeries, or whatever you're coming across. This perspective is so applicable to that time in your life as well, when you're being forced to take a break.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times earlier on in our journeys, we're so eager to get somewhere. I was talking to somebody the other day that blue belt is like, I think for most people, it's probably the most desirable belt, because blue belt for a lot of people kind of signals I know something, or I'm not a beginner anymore. And when I started training, nobody wanted their belts. Like, everybody just wanted to keep training, and the attitude was more, I'm not worthy of this next level. Absolutely. And I don't know if it's the gentrification of jiu-jitsu that's caused people to come to the sport now and look for gratification all the time. So, not necessarily so much in my culture, but you do get people that are questioning, well, why haven't I been promoted? Why haven't I advanced? And, it's difficult, because I would say that there's a bit of a battle between making that promotion process less subjective and more systematized. But then if it becomes too systematized, people will say it's watered down. But it's interesting how people become impatient with their own growth and what they need as reinforcement for growth. Mm-hmm. In some ways, I wish we could do away with belts altogether, but I don't know if our culture could really handle that, because a lot of people need to know where they stand all the time. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of work to develop the type of mentality where you can really stay and look at your own feedback and find your own methods of circling back and saying, have I grown? Where do I need to improve? These aren't, this path of growth is not the easy path. And I think our culture is one where people really need something that's easy sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this. And, quite a few people in this group are new to jiu-jitsu, and some of them are actually trying to discover if it's something they want to do and try to connect with women. And this is a great conversation for them to hear. Start your journey off in a way where you are, you're developing at your pace, and thinking about your growth instead of achieving that next belt or getting another stripe. I feel the same. Yeah. When I got my blue belt, I really just didn't feel like I deserved it. It was a scary next step, because then all these expectations come with it, and the whole thing. But I love your perspective, and I agree with you. There's so much placed on that next step, and instead of just enjoying the journey, growing, and really putting yourself into it and growing as a person as well. I love your perspective.
Yeah, I might also say too, particularly because this is a women's group, this has come up on a few other podcasts, that women, as females, I think, because we're not the majority, I think we should also be careful to know and have awareness about the fact that if our purpose and if our passion is to be a student and a practitioner, that we should give ourselves the permission to do that, because it's much more likely as a female that your jiu-jitsu journey is going to be interrupted far earlier and far more frequently than a male to can you help this new girl adjust to class? Hey, you're a 4-stripe blue belt now. Maybe you could start a club on the weekends just for females. Or I'd like for you to start teaching, some women 1 day a week. And although there is some great stuff that comes along with that, in terms of growing your own community and supporting your community, you're also then being asked to be in a different role. And then your job is not just to be a student and to love what you do and to look internally at your own process anymore. If you get interrupted very early in your growth curve in being a student of the art and you start having to lead, that too can be very disruptive, and that can lead to plateaus as well, because you begin to question your own motivation versus that of others, and you invest more in the growth of others than in yourself. So, that might be a very futuristic conversation for a lot of the people in your group, but I guarantee you a lot of people that will be listening to this at some point between white and purple belt, I'm going to assume, will be asked to take on more responsibility than most men in your gym.
Yeah, we've seen it in our gym. And I to some degree, I appreciate the being able to step in front of a class and lead a class, and it's with men and women. So I've really enjoyed building relationships that way and standing in front. I have enjoyed that, but I guess to a certain degree, I definitely, I hear what you're saying for sure, because it can perpetuate that, us on a different level as the men. I understand that completely. Yep.
Yeah, but again, the positives that come from it is we don't really always have a choice. If we want to grow the female contingency within our schools, we want to reinforce that and we want to support it. But to that, I say, if you are put into a position of leadership really prematurely and you're not prepared for it, but you want to help, do it, and know that there's so many resources. Make sure that you go out and have your own time to be a student as well. Carrying the weight of being a leader very early on is a heavy weight to carry. If you're not careful, I think that can also interrupt your own path. So the beautiful thing is today we have so many more options in terms of other females who are leading, black belts who have programs or running seminars and camps. And whether you like learning from only females or males and females, make sure you get your own time. Whatever your role is right now, make sure you get your own time and don't be distracted by the other concerns that we have in life, because your jiu-jitsu time is your jiu-jitsu time. Whether it be 1 hour a week, 3 hours a week, 20 hours a week, make sure that you give yourself that time. I think selfishness is a good thing. If you want to form your own identity around jiu-jitsu and invest yourself in that process, don't be afraid to carve out that personal time for yourself, because I think as women, we have multiple roles in so many different ways that men don't, and we can get so distracted from ourselves. So, I think sometimes that's also another root cause of plateauing, is that we're busy managing 5 different things and we don't have the time or the focus to put inwards.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I have found myself, especially in the beginning, trying to more so prove myself in front of the class, and try and, I don't know, to some degree, maybe not staying true to who I was. And your advice is perfect, trying to figure out I mean, it's like, wait a second, this wasn't supposed to happen today. Emily strikes again. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I love this. I really love this. And I know you're speaking to so many people on so many different subjects on every level, and I love it. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, Emily, but to wrap this up, do you have any, I know your blog kind of spoke to some, I don't know, you don't have to go through all 5 steps, but just some steps that people can take if they find themselves in that plateau burnout stage where they feel like they're just not getting anywhere, and how can they push through? I know it's very personal for most people and it's going to look differently for everybody. And, but in your stage of the game, you've been through a lot, you've seen a lot, and you have a great perspective. So I just wondered if you had any advice for those out there.
So I don't have the blog post pulled up right in front of me, but off the top of my head, I will definitely say that, and this is actually something I've been working on myself on a professional level, on a personal level, is that a lot of us, well, myself personally, will tend to operate on assumptions. So you know, I will have a gut feeling that things have to be this way or things have to go that way. And a lot of it has been trying to distract myself from actually sitting in a moment that I'm uncomfortable with, and not feeling great about things for a little while if I have to process. I call it sort of sitting in the gray, because more often than not, I want to operate on one extreme or the other. And I come to very quick conclusions because I'm an executor, and I don't like to sit in the gray space and really contemplate deeply and have unsettling feelings about why I'm not making progress or why something's not working for me. So one of the things that I would really recommend is for those of you who might be feeling a little sideways about what your jiu-jitsu is doing these days or not doing these days. But it's okay. It's totally okay to sit there and feel bad about it for a little while. You know, don't be in a rush to always come to a conclusion about what you should do, because sitting in it may reveal things very passively to you that you need to see. And don't be in a rush to get out of the plateau. The plateau is telling you something. And I think so much of the time we're just automated to tell ourselves we need to get out of this. We need to move past this already. That's one huge theme that I would recommend. Another thing with is trying things different ways, right? So maybe your plateau is that you don't seem to be able to hit your favorite sweep all the time. Well, maybe you're doing the same entry and all of your partners are reading into it. So maybe try entering into it from 3 different ways. Or maybe don't use it for a little while and throw it into the mix later on in your match. So sometimes it's just the way that we frame things, and we have expectations about what we're supposed to see. Maybe do away with our expectations for a little while and go at it in a roundabout way. We can be surprised by that. With plateauing, sometimes I also suggest, taking a step away from training altogether. For those of us that haven't been able to train a ton over this quarantine period, you may be very surprised when you go back to the mats that you'll feel refreshed and that your technique didn't disappear. Everybody's always worried, well, when I take a break, whether it's a plateau or an enforced break, I'm going to be worse because I took 3 months off. As a matter of fact, most people come back a lot better because they're not obsessively reinforcing negative patterns in their movement or in their head. So be okay with taking a break. The other thing with plateauing is it's a great time to take in new resources, whether it be instructionals or articles or books, or in this case, tons of podcasts have been popping up over this quarantine period, like maybe more than we need. but it seems like, every time I've been asked to speak, a lot of people are being very thoughtful about the way that they're thinking about jiu-jitsu, not just practicing jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. So get exposed to new perspectives. And, the other thing I can say is look at your feedback loops. Whatever path you choose to take, whether it's taking a break, sitting in your shit, trying to push through, keep a log or a journal and make note of what your feedback loops are. Like, what does it tell you? What happens when you do option A versus option B? And what happens when you do those things over a period of time? When you look back at the data, does it tell you something? Do you notice that every time I take a break for a week, it's really good for me, but if I take a break for 3 weeks, I'm way off, These kinds of feedback loops are things that I don't think a lot of us employ in our training, let alone our life. But our own actions can tell us a lot if we take the extra step and go back and look at them, right? So taking better care of the self and making sure you acknowledge the work that you've done.
I love that. Emily, thank you so much for your perspective. I love it. It's very relatable. It's, I think it's forward thinking. I think it's positive, and you really take into consideration people's uniqueness in their journey. And, and your instruction is always great. When another experience I've had with you is in Role Model Camp. You were an instructor there last year. And I enjoyed that thoroughly. It was a great female experience. There were so many ladies there. It was overwhelming, but it was great. So is there a way, if somebody wants to learn from you or watch, be in contact with you through social media, I would be happy to share links and all your contacts so that I can help you grow your audience as well.
Well, I'm on Facebook. If you can't reach me because my friends list is very high, just message me. I'm also
Okay.
on Instagram, Emily Kwok BJJ. I pollinate social media everywhere.
You're
I don't
sprinkled
have
in
to.
everywhere. Podcasts and this and that. Yeah. You're
It's just too
everywhere.
much to be on it all the time. But yeah, I pollinate among different communities on social media. The other thing you can do is you can check out, if you don't already have the DVD or the YouTube videos from Stefan Testing, How to Defeat the Bigger, Stronger Opponent. That's always, I hear it's a classic. And I also have done a series of techniques with Jason Scully on Grappler Side. And that is a one-time lifetime membership. So that's positive because he's always adding new techniques and new instructors. We were supposed to do a second series of techniques. So that's a great site as well.
I can speak to that. I am a member of that. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
And I would also welcome you guys to check out our website, Princeton BJJ and Groundswell Grappling Concepts, the camps that I run with Hannette from time to time. We were supposed to do a camp next month with Jazari Matuda and Dominica and Hannette, which we had to put back again. And I do stuff remotely. So if anyone's looking for very specific remote coaching, I've done all sorts of, different scenarios. Whether it's coaching your mindset for competition in life, or if it's competitive feedback, it's all there. So I've got multiple outlets. So just get out there and harass me.
Great. How I didn't know you did that one-on-one work. How does somebody contact you for that? I mean,
You can just reach out to me on social media, and then I can get in touch with you via email. And I've had some really interesting experiences with that. And like last 2 years ago, I coached a gentleman from Hawaii who was a purple belt and had never competed before in his life, but it was a goal of his. So we worked remotely once a week, and we built him up so that he could feel like he had something to do when he showed up at Masters. And then, I've done a lot of other remote sessions where we look at people's competitive footage, and people have asked me to critique what they see in their game so we can look at strategy. A lot of my sessions will eventually kind of circle back to how it applies to the self and sort of peak performance. How do you bring the best part of yourself out in all of this? Because I do a lot of this professionally outside of jiu-jitsu in a different industry, but it applies to jiu-jitsu all the same. So if anyone's interested, definitely reach out to me.
that's fantastic. I love that. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is great. I know the remote has been it's nice to connect with people in a different way. I think it's going to open up so many opportunities going forward. In my profession, I'm a physical therapist. I've seen that. I've been working with people more online, and it's actually kind of fun. It renews your whole passion for what you're doing and helps you look at it differently. I love it. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, and in this time, it's been interesting. I've led a couple online workshops, and I've had the opportunity to meet people who have said that they've always wanted to come work with me, and distance has always been a factor. I did a workshop where I had people from Europe on board, and I had somebody from India on board. So it's provided some really awesome experiences that we wouldn't otherwise have. So I hope we're able to take some of the good stuff from this lockdown and bring it into our regular practice.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I love that. Okay, Emily,
Awesome.
I am going to let you go. I am so sorry about how we started, but I appreciate your patience. You're a wonderful human being. So thank you so much. And I know everybody here has appreciated it. We've had a lot of people watching actually. So everybody give Emily some love and tell her thank you. And I want you to have an awesome day, Emily, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.